Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we take your sources, articles, research, maybe even your own notes, and really try to pull out the most important insights. Our goal is to shortcut you to being well-informed, hopefully with some surprising facts and enough interest to keep you listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Today, we're building something, but maybe not in the way you'd first think, not with steel or concrete. We're diving deep into the, let's call them invisible forces that shape our built environment. We're talking about the complex, often really tricky landscape of ethics in architecture and construction.
That's exactly it. Think about it as you go about your day. You see a towering skyscraper, right? Or maybe it's a community park you love, a library, even just your own home. Beyond the structure itself, the blueprints, the budgets, countless decisions were made. And every single one carried this significant weight of responsibility. Our job today is to kind of uncover those invisible forces, the ones that shaped that building, that park, the space you use, and really understand the ethical thinking woven right into them.
It's really fascinating when you start peeling back those layers, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we often think of architecture and construction as, technical fields, governed by engineering, building codes, legal contracts.
Right, the hard stuff.
Yeah, the hard stuff. But what we're going to unpack today is this really profound and maybe often overlooked layer of ethical choices. And these choices, they don't just impact the client or the project team. They ripple out. They affect whole communities, our environment, frankly, the entire planet.
And our mission here in this deep dive is really to get you well informed about these ethical dilemmas. They're just inherent in the act of building. We'll explore that fundamental duty architects have public health, safety, and welfare, HSW, and how that can clash, frequently with what clients want or budget limits, which are always there.
Always.
And even bigger things like gentrification or the huge pressure of climate change.
So we'll look at real-world examples, the professional guidelines that try to navigate this stuff. And this isn't about finding simple right or wrong answers, because honestly, often they just don't exist.
No, it's much more nuanced.
Exactly. It's about getting a nuanced understanding of what real professionalism looks like in design and construction. Appreciating that, every beam placed, every window chosen, every layout decision, it all carries this ethical dimension. So what does this mean for the people shaping our world? Let's really dive into these sources.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the ethics of architecture and building, we absolutely have to start at the foundation, right? The bedrock principle, this duty to public health, safety, and welfare, HSW. And like you said, this isn't some new idea. It's baked into the history of these professions.
That's such a crucial point. If you trace back engineering, and by extension, architecture, you find this long, long history of dedication to, well, morality, conscience, social responsibility. Think about Thomas Treadgold's definition of engineering way back in 1828.
Wow, 1828.
Yeah, he called it the art of directing the great sources of power in nature for the use and convenience of man. What's really striking there is the focus on human use and benefit, not profit first, service first. That's a powerful idea.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a one-off thing. Those definitions kept evolving.
They did. You see variations later on, extending it to things like for the benefit of the human race or for the good of humanity. It really hammers home that this idea of service to humanity, it isn't just, a nice phrase for a brochure.
Right.
It's the core purpose, what these professions are meant to be about. It's not just building something, it's building for people with their well-being right at the front.
So this core principle, even if there was maybe some early resistance to writing down formal ethical codes.
Oh, yeah. There was definitely resistance. Some felt a professional gentleman's conscience should be enough, But eventually it found its way into official documents. By the mid-20th century, around 1950 or so, most engineering groups had signed on to what they called the Fundamental Principles of Engineering Ethics. And this document, it flat out states the engineer will use his knowledge and skill for the advancement of human welfare. That's like the North Star for building professionals. It reminds them where their ultimate duty lies, improving society. It elevates a whole thing beyond just a job. It's a moral calling.
Okay, so that's the philosophical grounding, this deep ethical commitment to human welfare. But how do these, high-minded ideals, health, safety, welfare, actually become real rules, things that govern every brick, every beam? Because you can't just wish a building safe.
No, you definitely can't. And that's exactly where building codes and standards come in. This is where the abstract concept of HSW gets codified into practical, enforceable rules. The International Building Code, the IBC, that's a prime example.
IBC.
It's how these ethical principles become concrete requirements. It's literally the law of the land in many places, making sure buildings meet minimum life-saving standards. And the ethical insight here is huge. These codes aren't just red tape, they're a kind of collective agreement, often learned the hard way through tragedies, that we will protect life and well-being in our built environment.
And when you talk safety, probably the first thing that jumps to mind for most people is fire safety. I know the IBC gets really specific there.
Incredibly specific, and for very good reason. Fire safety is absolutely paramount, and the code tackles it from all sides.
Yeah.
Like allowable heights in areas for a building that's not just plucked out of thin air. No, it's meticulously figured out based on the building's construction type. Like, is it wood frame, steel, concrete? It's occupancy, what's used for offices, apartments, a factory. And whether it has crucial things like sprinkler systems. You find these details in specific tables, like IBC tables 504.4 and 506.2.
So it's complex calculations.
Very complex. But the ethical underpinning is that these aren't just numbers. They represent lessons learned, often from devastating fires. They embody our collective promise to protect life and allow people to get out safely. Every single inch, every foot is considered for how it affects escape.
So it's not just how big the building can be, but also how different spaces inside interact, especially if there's a fire. Do some uses need to be walled off?
Absolutely. The code demands what are called separated occupancies. High hazard uses, think storing flammable materials, certain manufacturing processes, things like H2 through H5 occupancies, they have to be separated from each other and from other areas.
Makes sense.
And similarly, residential or sleeping units, I1, R1, R2, R3, so care facilities, hotels, apartments, they need separation too, not just from hazards, but often from other types of occupancies. The ethical idea is containment. Section 508.3.3 and Section 420 in the IBC cover a lot of this. If a fire starts, you want to keep it contained, stop it spreading rapidly, protect people who might be sleeping or can't move quickly. This compartmentalization is a direct ethical response to potential harm.
And those firewalls and fire partitions we see, they aren't just dividing up space, they have really specific requirements to actually do their job, right?
Exactly right. They're critical safety components. Firewalls, for example, often need to extend beyond the main structure, like out to the edge of roof overhangs or balconies if they're within 4 feet. That's in Section 706.5.2. There are exceptions, of course, for things without concealed spaces, but the idea is to prevent fire from just going around the wall.
Flanking the wall.
Precisely. And for fire partitions, which create smaller fire-rated areas, the structure supporting them generally needs to have an equal or greater fire resistance rating. You can't have a strong fire partition held up by something weak that collapses in a fire. Section 708.4.1 addresses this, again with exceptions for certain building types or tenant separations. These details ensure the whole fire barrier system is robust. The ethical commitment is to the integrity of the entire safety system.
Okay, and those fire resistance ratings, usually measured in hours, like a 1-hour wall. That sounds like a really precise measurement.
It's incredibly precise and ethically critical. A 1-hour wall, based on Table 601 of the IBC for various construction types like Type 1, 2, 3, 4V, means when it's tested in a standard fire furnace, it resists fire, smoke, and heat penetration for a full hour.
Okay.
This applies to major elements, structural frame, bearing walls. These ratings are vital. They buy precious time, time for people to escape, time for firefighters to arrive and work. The ethical link is direct. These ratings mean a bigger window for saving lives.
And beyond the big structural parts, what about things specific to homes?
Yeah, residential codes get very specific too. Think emergency exit windows, specific sizes, sill heights, so people can actually get out and firefighters can get in if needed. Automatic fire alarms, smoke detectors, almost always required, especially to wake people up.
Right, crucial at night.
Absolutely. And increasingly, automatic fire sprinklers are being mandated, especially now that simpler, cheaper systems are available. It's all part of this holistic, ethical responsibility to anticipate and reduce fire risk in our homes and public spaces.
Okay, moving from fire to just getting around. Egress, safe exit paths, and accessibility. These are also huge HSW concerns, right? Especially in public buildings with all sorts of people needing to navigate them.
Absolutely critical. Ensuring safe, inclusive pathways for everyone is key. Think about the ethical principle of universal access. For buildings needing two ways out, which is most larger public or commercial buildings, the code, like in IBC Section 1005.5, says you have to distribute the expected number of people, the occupant load, roughly equally between those exits.
Why equally?
So that if one exit gets blocked in an emergency, say, by fire or debris, the remaining exit capacity isn't cut down to less than half of what's needed for everyone to get out safely. It's about planning for failure, building in redundancy. The ethical driver is designing for the safety of all occupants, anticipating problems.
And accessibility, that feels like an area that's really evolved,
Yeah.
reflecting changing values maybe.
Definitely. Accessibility is an evolving ethical commitment. You see it in new code sections, like Section 1107 dealing with accessible passenger loading zones. These are now required at medical facilities where people might stay over 24 hours and wherever valet parking is offered.
Specific dimensions too, I bet.
Oh, yeah. Minimum overhead clearance of 114 inches, that's for accessible vans, and an adjacent access aisle at least 5 feet wide for safe transfers. It ensures everyone, regardless of mobility, can safely access these critical places. That's a powerful ethical statement about inclusivity. It shows how our ethical framework adapts, turning principles into concrete standards for new needs.
That's a great example. And with electric vehicles everywhere now, are there new rules for charging stations and accessibility?
Yes, exactly. As the landscape changes, so do our responsibilities. There's new language addressing the boom in electric vehicle charging stations, EVCS. The code clarifies that public EVCS need to be accessible.
To the general public.
Right, making sure the traveling public isn't shut out of this new infrastructure. Now, there are some exceptions, like it usually doesn't apply to certain types of residential housing, R2, R3, R4 apartments or homes. But importantly, R1 occupancies, hotels, they are not excluded.
Because hotels serve the traveling public.
Precisely. It shows this ethical recognition that hotels serve a diverse public who will increasingly need accessible charging. It's a perfect example of ethical design adapting to technology and society to ensure fairness.
Okay, so we've got the rules, the codes, all about minimizing risk, ensuring safety. But what about the actual science behind making a building stand up, perform well, last? It goes beyond just looking okay. There's an ethical side to quality and endurance, isn't there?
There absolutely is. Now we're getting into structural integrity and building science, the unseen forces, the long-term performance. Take wood, a basic material. Its strength parallel to the grain is way higher than perpendicular.
Okay.
So when we frame a house, we're sort of mimicking the treeness. Vertical studs handle compression like tree trunks, horizontal joists and girders bend under load like branches in the wind. A structural engineer carefully calculates all this, sizes everything correctly. The ethical point. Good design respects the material's nature and the forces involved to ensure long-term safety. It's not just about looks.
That's a fantastic analogy.
Yeah.
And for other materials, masonry, concrete, similar intricate details for strength and ethical longevity.
Definitely. Every material needs careful consideration. For masonry, you need reinforced bond beams, vertical steel that overlaps dowels to tie walls to foundations. Minimum bearing lengths for joists resting on walls are critical. For wood, there are different grades like #2 and better, or stud grade used for specific things like floor joists versus wall studs. Precast concrete slabs need proper reinforcement and bonding with concrete topping to work as a unit, supported correctly by frames or walls. It's all about understanding these unseen forces, stresses, loads. The ethical duty is to prevent future failure, injury, damage, loss of trust.
Beyond just standing up, keeping a building comfortable, efficient, healthy. That means controlling the internal environment, right? Things like moisture, air quality, often invisible factors.
We're hitting on something critical for occupant comfort and long-term health, which is absolutely an ethical responsibility. Moisture management is huge. Uncontrolled condensation. It ruins insulation, lets building materials soak up moisture, causes finishes to deteriorate, creates unhealthy conditions, costly repairs.
So how do designers fight that?
Two main ways. Either use vapor retarders to stop moisture getting into wall cavities or enclosed spaces, or ensure enough ventilation so moisture can escape before it condenses. Even condensation on windows needs managing warm air supply across the glass, or double, even triple glazing. The ethical commitment here is designing buildings resilient against environmental issues, protecting the structure and the occupant's health.
And it's not just visible stuff like leaky windows, hidden things like ductwork, tiny air leaks. they matter a lot too.
Oh, absolutely. These are those invisible ethical responsibilities. Leaky ducts hidden in walls or ceilings. They can transfer pollutants, mess up thermal performance, impact comfort, and seriously degrade indoor air quality.
So sealing everything up tight is key.
Meticulous air sealing is crucial. Using special sealants, adhesives, gaskets at critical spots like between the bottom plate of a wall and the subfloor, around electrical boxes. It maintains air pressure boundaries, keeps conditioned air in, pollutants out. It's about creating a truly sealed, controlled, healthy indoor space. That's an ethical obligation to the people inside.
All this precision, structural, and environmental really highlights how important quality control is during construction. Who's ultimately responsible for making sure it all actually happens?
Well, fundamentally, quality control is the contractor's job. They're doing the work day to day, they need to meet the specs. But the construction manager, the CM, has a crucial, ethically significant oversight role.
Okay, the CM.
The CM monitors the contractor's compliance, develops procedures, and importantly, arranges for field testing that maybe isn't in the contractor's direct scope. They're the owner's representative, ensuring the ethical commitment to quality on paper becomes real quality in the building. It's more than just ticking boxes, it's upholding the project's integrity.
So keeping a site clean and organized,
Yeah.
it's not just about looking professional, it's an ethical thing too.
Exactly. It's a profound ethical statement. A clean, debris-free site improves work quality. Fewer hazards, better organization, fewer mistakes. Plus, it sends a message. Order, precision, safety matter here. That boosts craftsmanship, morale.
And the opposite.
A sloppy site signals carelessness, maybe disregard for safety. If a CM sees unsafe conditions and the contractor doesn't fix them, the CM is ethically obligated to issue written notices, copy the owner, if it persists, a stop work order. And critically, the contractor gets no extra time or money for that stoppage. It reinforces accountability. Safety and ethics come first.
Okay, so we've moved from the basics of structure and immediate safety. But the ethical landscape for architects and builders has really broadened, hasn't it? Today, you just can't talk about building without talking sustainability, community impact, the planet. That feels like a massive ethical shift.
It's a true paradigm shift, absolutely. The need for ecological design, green building, it's way beyond just meeting minimum codes now. It's about proactive environmental stewardship. Ecological design has been nicely defined as any form of design that minimizes environmentally destructive impacts by integrating itself with living processes.
Integrating with living processes.
Yeah, designing buildings that work with nature, not against it. Understanding that our built world is tied to the natural world. The ethical mandate is for designers, builders, everyone to act as stewards of the planet, thinking long term.
And it's not just a vague idea. There are actual standards, metrics, certifications now, like LEED, that bring some accountability.
Indeed. Lead leadership in energy and environmental design is a prime example of turning ethical goals into something measurable. It's a point-based system covering categories like location and transportation, sustainable sites, water efficiency, energy and atmosphere, materials and resources, indoor environmental quality.
You get different levels.
Right. Certified, silver, gold, platinum, based on points earned. These certifications give a solid benchmark for environmental performance, allow objective comparison, and show a transparent ethical commitment to sustainability. They push designers to think about the whole lifecycle siting, energy, materials, occupant well-being.
It's pretty impressive how widely these are being adopted, not just privately, but sometimes mandated by governments. Shows a kind of collective ethical agreement growing.
Absolutely. Institutional commitment is a powerful ethical signal. Take Vancouver, all new civic buildings over 500 square meters must hit LED gold. That's policy, showing the city's ethical responsibility to lead.
And the private sector sees value too.
Definitely. Both in long-term savings and reputation. We see amazing results. The Swiss Reinsurance Tower uses 50% less energy than typical buildings. The Condé Nast building in New York, 35–40% less. The Solaire apartment building gold rated 35% more energy efficient than code. 67% lower peak power demand, diverted 93% of construction waste from landfills.
Wow, 93%.
Incredible, right. Or One Bryant Park, also in New York, innovative glass double wall, underfloor air, CO2 sensors, rainwater collection, saving over 10 million gallons a year. These aren't small tweaks. They're substantial, ethically driven gains, proving sustainable design works and pays off.
This sounds like it demands a totally different way of working, though. Not the old siloed approach. More ethically integrated.
And it absolutely does.
Yeah.
It needs what's called an integrated design process, or a high-performance green building delivery system. You pick teams specifically for green expertise. You foster intense collaboration, architects, engineers, contractors, owners, right from the start.
From day one.
Exactly. The focus shifts from optimizing single systems to integrated building performance. Big emphasis on protecting the environment during construction, occupant, and worker health, and really scrutinizing the life cycle impacts of every choice. It's an ethical commitment to seeing the whole picture.
And technology must be a huge help in reaching these goals. How are sophisticated tools helping design more sustainably, more ethically?
Technology is indispensable, a powerful ethical ally. Building energy simulation tools like DOE 2.2, Energy 10 let designers model buildings in incredible detail, simulate performance hour by hour for a whole year.
Before it's even built.
Way before. This allows early data-driven decisions on shape, number of stories, orientation to optimize heating, cooling, walls, insulation, lighting, windows, shading. It finds efficiencies early, prevents wasteful design, ensures a more ethical use of resources.
So no more guessing about energy performance. It's modeled scientifically, which feels like an ethical necessity now.
Exactly. Same for daylighting. Sophisticated software like Radiance evaluates how natural light gets in and spreads, helps optimize windows, reduce artificial lighting, cut energy use, improve well-being. It's about understanding the interplay between windows fenestration and the building skin's insulation envelope thermal resistance.
Okay. And then there's BIM, Building Information Modeling.
Ah, BIM, right. For anyone maybe not familiar, BIM is basically a smart 3D model. It's not just geometry. It holds tons of data materials, systems, schedules, like a digital twin of the project, a shared resource for decision-making.
And how does that help sustainability goals?
Immensely powerful for sustainability. BIM helps extract accurate quantities for cost estimates, better material use, less waste. It enables detailed energy analysis. Crucially, it does clash detection.
Clash detection.
Yeah, it finds where different systems, pipes, ducts, wires might physically collide in the design before they're installed. This prevents huge amounts of rework and material waste. Plus, its visualization helps everyone understand the design better, leading to smarter decisions early on. It supports value engineering, model-based budgeting, ultimately a more sustainable, ethically sound result. It turns data into knowledge, reduces risk, boosts quality.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. Beyond the environment, buildings profoundly shape our cities, our urban lives. And that brings a whole other layer of social responsibility, ethical challenges for architects, planners. How do we even start thinking about the ethics of designing cities, or even just one building within one?
It's incredibly complex, often overlooked, but the ethical consequences are massive. Jane Jacobs, the great observer of cities, had this fascinating view. She saw cities as natural products of human nature, like a prairie dog town or an oyster bed.
Interesting perspective.
It helps us see our impact more holistically, cities as living systems. Ethically, it means we should treat these systems with respect, understanding our interventions have ripple effects, just like in a natural ecosystem.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, maybe even controversial. Talking urban impact, ethics of city shaping. You pretty much have to talk about figures like Robert Moses in New York, the ultimate power broker. His huge legacy is, well, a compelling, maybe cautionary tale about ethical responsibility and power.
Indeed. Moses was often praised, even idolized, for supposedly reclaiming the city's waterfront for its people, building parks, amenities. But look closer, say at Riverside Park. The reality was ethically compromised.
How so?
For much of its length, a 6-lane parkway, not the park, took the land closest to the river. It literally separated people from the water with speeding cars. Other planners wanted the road built over the train tracks, letting the park sweep right down to the river. A real escape.
But Moses's vision won out.
His vision, focused on efficiency maybe, created a barrier. It shows how one powerful vision can override the ethical goal of maximizing public access and enjoyment.
That's a stark example. Vision for public good leading to maybe a less than good outcome for the public. And his methods. They weren't always gentle, right? There's human cost.
A significant one. And this is where the ethics get deeply troubling. Moses often showed profound disregard for existing communities. He famously obliterated homes of little people along the St. Lawrence for his parkways, even when the governor's aides noted nice-looking cottages into which you could tell loving care had gone. It shows the stark, brutal conflict between a grand infrastructure vision prioritizing speed, efficiency, and the devastating impact on individual homes, lives, community fabric. The ethical questions are huge. The right to place, the value of existing communities, does the greater good justify that kind of displacement?
And his power seemed almost absolute. He could push things through regardless of opposition. That concentration of power itself seems like an ethical issue.
It absolutely is. His technical skill, his political maneuvering, they let him bypass legislative intent, democratic process. He was brilliant at finding loopholes, ensuring appointed officials stayed on, keeping agencies independent.
Mm.
It showed how power, even within legal limits, can be wielded unethically to achieve specific ends, often sidelining public oversight or community input. A tough lesson in how one person's vision, even if well-intentioned, can compromise collective governance.
It really underscores Jane Jacobs' point about urban complexity. It's not just top-down plans, it's the intricate fabric, how decisions affect daily life, connections, safety.
Precisely. Jacobs's famous eyes on the street for safety. That wasn't just quaint, it was a deep ethical insight. Urban order isn't simple control. It's a complex dance of mixed uses, active storefronts, diverse people, making spaces safe and vibrant. When planning gets fragmented or one vision overrides everything, you get these labyrinthine mazes, Jacobs said, causing old hope dead of exhaustion. Her work shows cities are living systems, neglecting the human interaction, the community fabric that has deep ethical costs.
This talk of shared resources, individual actions in a city, it makes me think of the tragedy of the commons, usually applied to, like, grazing land or fisheries, but it seems relevant here too.
Oh, absolutely relevant, a critical lens for urban ethics. In systems thinking, the tragedy applies perfectly to development. Unregulated individuals, companies, even nations building or consuming, they can easily overexploit common resources. Public land, clean air, infrastructure quiet for private gain, or use common sinks for pollution.
And the costs.
Externalized. Borne by society, education, healthcare, infrastructure strain, environmental cleanup. It highlights this powerful ethical imperative for regulation, collective planning, shared responsibility for construction's impact. Without it, individual optimization leads straight to collective harm, eroding quality of life for everyone.
Looking ahead, smart cities, ubiquitous sensors, data collection everywhere. That must raise a whole new raft of ethical questions. Privacy, algorithmic governance.
It certainly does. Emerging ethical frontiers. Things like waste disposal tracking, smarter traffic flow, amazing potential for optimization, but huge ethical questions implicitly arise. Who owns the data? How is it used? What about privacy? Algorithmic bias. Could traffic algorithms inadvertently create digital ghettos by always routing resources away from some areas? Smart city tech demands a proactive ethical stance to ensure it serves all citizens fairly, without undermining rights. It's a tricky balance, efficiency versus liberty.
Okay, let's zoom in now from the scale of cities and codes to a more personal, but just as complex relationship. The architect and the client. This is where artistic vision, practical needs, budgets, they often collide, create some serious ethical friction.
This dynamic is absolutely a crucible for ethical dilemmas. Professional integrity gets tested constantly here. Think about Frank Lloyd Wright. His autobiography is full of his struggles establishing his unique style, grappling with clients who maybe wanted something different, aligning their desires with his, let's say, strong artistic vision.
He had a clear idea of what good architecture was.
Oh, yeah. He defined it as truth, beauty, and a response to the environment and human needs. He slammed superficiality, mere decorative forms. His ethical commitment was to his holistic vision.
So a very strong vision, admirable maybe, but that kind of artistic integrity must have come at a cost for clients, for the people living in those unique designs.
It absolutely did. Wright spent his life fighting the pull of the specious old box, right? Experimenting with hexagons, triangles, circles, pushing boundaries. The designs were often impressive, artistically bold, but they frequently fought the hand of dwellers as well as builders, leading to exasperated clients. Buildings, sometimes called petrified art, organic only in idea, stillborn. Think of IMP's triangular elevator in the National Gallery, described as gratuitously awkward, astronomically expensive, making every space around it a pain to work with. It shows how a powerful artistic vision, if it's not balanced with user needs, practicality, budget, can have really negative ethical consequences for the user, functionality, resource stewardship. The ethical tightrope for the architect is serving both art and humanity.
Sounds like a constant tension. Pure art versus practical, human-centered design. Is there another way? An approach that maybe prioritizes function, context over rigid style? A more ethically responsive way?
Indeed. A strong counterpoint is the idea of abandoning stylistic prejudice, choosing instead the style for the job.
The style for the job.
Yeah. It allows for a more viable integration of design with practicalities of machine-age existence. It suggests a more adaptable, ethically responsive approach, prioritizing what works best for this situation, these people, these resources, rather than imposing a signature style regardless. This ethical flexibility allows for a more responsive, less, autocratic architecture.
That makes a lot of sense, user.
Yeah.
Context first. And this tension client desires, cost pressure, the drive for quality. It's not just in the architect's office. It plays out intensely on the construction site. Tracy Kidder's book House has this incredibly powerful raw look at the human side of building.
It's an unbelievably revealing story, cuts right to the ethical heart of labor and value. Kidder tells about Ned, a skilled builder, just exploding in frustration after a client change order basically wiped out their profit on a custom staircase, and more importantly, it just undermined their craftsmanship.
What did he say?
His outburst, fuck them, fook them. It just captures that raw, emotional, ethical toll. He lamented, they're taking the spirit away from us. They're not going to get as good a job. It perfectly shows that ethical tension, client power, financial pressure, and the builder's deep pride in their work. When that spirit gets crushed, quality often suffers too. An ethical shortfall, even if the contract's technically met.
It's so visceral, so honest. It really drives home that quality isn't just a spec in a contract. It's tied to the human element, the builder's pride, integrity.
Absolutely. Later, the project manager, Jim, advises Ned to find quick solutions, contract solutions for another detail, basically suggesting just slapping cheap plywood over a required crawl space opening.
Uh-oh.
But Ned's response, it says everything about his internal ethical struggle. Even though the client devalued their work, he still meticulously bevels, sands, countersinks that cheap plywood, sarcastically saying, good enough for South Amherst. It highlights that conflict, expediency versus this ingrained, almost moral commitment to quality, even when it's unappreciated, uncompensated. It's an ethical choice to maintain your own standards.
So there's this tacit dimension to expert knowledge, a value in the work itself beyond the contract, an internal ethical compass.
Exactly. It connects to this idea of the human dimension of productive labor, where the maker's activity is enlivened by a direct perception of the thing made or fixed being used in its full context. When craftsmanship gets devalued, workers treated like cogs, subjected only to cost cutting. It diminishes not just the product's quality, but the human spirit, the ethical investment in its creation. It's an ethical failure to see the full value of skilled labor, a loss money can't fix.
This sounds like an incredibly tough balancing act for project managers, architects. Maximize value, meet expectations, but manage real constraints and uphold ethical quality standards.
Precisely. This is where solid project management principles, like from the PMBOK guide, are crucial. They stress tailoring approaches to the specific context, maximize value, manage constraints, scope, time, budget. A professional has an ethical duty to navigate these tensions proactively. Transparent communication with everyone, client, contractors, designers align expectations on quality, cost, schedule. It's about getting the job done right without compromising ethics, work integrity, or the team's well-being. Finding that ethical sweet spot between quality and practicality.
Okay, from craftsmanship and client relations, let's pivot to another key ethical piece. The end user's convenience, comfort, experience. I mean, what good is a beautiful building if it's just awkward or uncomfortable to live or work in? That seems like a fundamental ethical question.
It is fundamental, and history offers some potent ethical lessons here. Think about the failures of many early modernist buildings, often built cheap but showy, maybe brought more glory for the architect with that stark look.
Right.
But the result was often that everybody won but the users. This ethical oversight, prioritizing architectural statement or cost savings over the inhabitants' actual comfort, function, daily life, it led to a major, almost revolutionary shift in design thinking. Designers had to learn, sometimes the hard way, to put users first.
So the users kind of revolted. What did that look like?
Changes in design philosophy.
It led straight to a push for loose fit in buildings, designing spaces that are adaptable, flexible, can handle unexpected uses, changes over time rather than rigidly dictating function. And crucially, post-occupancy evaluation, POE, was invented.
Yeah, a dedicated subdiscipline. POEs systematically study how buildings are actually used after they're finished. Getting feedback on performance, comfort, function. It was a direct ethical response to modernism's blind spots, forcing designers to consider the long-term lived experience and take responsibility for their impact. It shifted the ethical focus from building for an abstract ideal to building for people.
What about the reaction to modernism, like postmodernism? Did that movement fix these ethical issues around user convenience adaptability?
Not entirely, unfortunately. Postmodernism reacted to modernism's puritanical simplicity, favoring, as Venturi put it, messy vitality over obvious unity. But sometimes it just became another kind of ethical dodge.
How so?
Venturi's idea of decorated sheds, like in Vegas, it captured how architects could become exterior decorators solely and proudly, focusing on superficial style over complex ethical responsibilities like user convenience, long-term adaptability, deeper societal impact. It reinforces the point. Prioritizing superficial aesthetics, whether stark modernism or quirky postmodernism over user needs or long-term function, is an ethical lapse.
It really sounds like a recurring theme in architecture history. Grandeur, artistic statements, often trumping practical convenience, human scale, even older critiques at this point.
Absolutely. The tension is ancient. Viollet-le-Duc, the 19th century French architect and theorist, blasted the colossal order in architecture loved by figures like Louis XIV for its external grandeur, its imposing feel.
Right, I think it's Versailles.
Exactly. But Viollet-le-Duc noted it was often out of scale with everything and not lending itself readily to convenience. He said, historically, architecture has been autocratic. It has become an art to which convenience has had to bend. It's a powerful, enduring argument for an ethical design approach that always prioritizes the user, function, human scale, ensuring buildings serve people first, not force people to awkwardly adapt to them. A call for humility and service in design.
Right, we've covered a lot of ground. Foundational duties of health and safety, evolving responsibilities for the environment and community, the tricky dance between vision and needs. Let's pull it together now. Look at how professional practice actually navigates this complexity. Accountability, mechanisms for upholding ethical standards.
This is where formal and informal ethical guidance really becomes the industry's backbone. Professionals in building services, including construction management, are ethically expected to meet recognized standards of performance. The CMAA Construction Management Standards of Practice, for instance, is described explicitly as an industry standard of practice which the CM will meet or exceed.
Even if it's not legally enforceable on its own.
Right. Its existence underlines a moral commitment beyond just legal minimums. It's about striving for excellence, upholding the profession's reputation for integrity.
So, aiming high ethically, not just avoiding lawsuits. And for bigger projects like program management, the ethical scope must be huge, given the scale and impact.
It is incredibly broad. A program manager, the PM, carries immense ethical weight, especially early on. They have to validate the need for the program itself as it genuinely needed, then determine its fiscal viability, reasonable cost estimates, realistic schedules.
Not diligence.
Absolutely. And it extends to identifying all sorts of related requirements and impacts: environmental studies, sustainability, wetland preservation, archaeological investigations, historical preservation, getting all the necessary entitlement considerations from authorities. The PM's job is to ensure the program isn't just feasible and funded, but responsibly planned, considering all potential impacts: social, environmental, cultural, a truly comprehensive ethical scope.
That's massive, with so many variables.
Yeah.
How do they even define something as potentially fuzzy as quality in that context?
That's one of the toughest things to pin down in writing, and it has huge ethical implications. The level of quality, it's subjective, but deeply impacts cost, schedule, long-term performance, user satisfaction. The PM, working with planners and designers, has to establish clear, measurable quality standards. Could be simple guidelines, could be a detailed manual.
It's the ethical challenge.
Ensuring those standards are realistic within the budget and schedule, clearly communicated to everyone, and consistently enforced. It's managing expectations, ensuring the promised quality, a core ethical commitment, actually gets delivered without cutting corners elsewhere.
Beyond planning quality, managing risks, ensuring site safety,
Yeah.
absolutely critical in construction, and ethically loaded, especially for the construction manager, the CM, who's often right there on the ground.
Absolutely. Proactive risk management isn't just smart business, it's an ethical imperative. Teams need to identify effective risk responses timely, cost-effective, realistic, agreed upon, and crucially, owned by a responsible person. This isn't just for project success, it's ethically vital for protecting everyone, workers, the public, the owner's investment. Foreseeing and mitigating risks, especially safety risks, is a fundamental ethical duty.
And for worker safety specifically, the CM's role sounds really active, not just checking boxes, but intervening.
It's a critical, morally charged oversight role. The CM actively monitors the contractor's daily work. They're ethically required to notify the contractor in writing, copying the owner about any deficiencies or imminent hazards or situations observed. Then they have to follow up, make sure corrective actions are taken.
What if the contractor doesn't fix it?
If they fail to correct an unsafe condition, the CM immediately notifies the owner. The owner can then issue a stop work order until it's fixed. And here's the ethical kicker. Extensions of time or additional compensation are not granted the contractor as a result of any stop order.
Ah, no reward for being unsafe.
Exactly. It puts accountability squarely on the contractor. Safety first, period. Not an optional extra.
That's a strong incentive. What about really high-hazard activities and anything beyond daily monitoring?
Definitely. For critical, high-hazard or non-routine stuff, think complex crane lifts, working at heights, handling hazardous materials. Contractors must do a job hazard analysis, a JHA.
Yeah.
It meticulously outlines safe procedures, risks, precautions. Then safety coordination meetings, CM, contractor doing the work, any other affected contractors discuss these JHAs thoroughly. And critically, comprehensive training for all involved employees is required before the work starts. Everyone needs to understand the risks and protocols. It's more than accident prevention. It's an ethical commitment to proactive risk reduction, valuing every worker's life.
This all sounds like a constant battle against that human tendency to, cut corners, work near the edge of safety, especially under pressure.
It is. Organizational, individual pressures often push people near the edge. Standardizing rules in dynamic work situations is tough. So the ethical approach involves actively expanding the zone of safety. Better planning, continuous training, fostering a culture where people can speak up about concerns without fear, ensuring workers can always answer questions about hazards. It's about proactive prevention, building a deep safety culture, empowering everyone to prioritize well-being.
Technology is clearly changing construction and design so much. I imagine it plays a big and increasingly ethical role in professional practice, too. How does something like BIM, building information modeling, which we touched on, help ethically?
BIM is a massive ethical step forward, really. It moves the industry beyond just automating tasks to this integrated and interoperable workflow, inherently coordinated and collaborative. It maximizes computing power, data aggregation, leading to fact-based, repeatable, and verifiable decision processes that reduce risk and enhance the quality of actions and product industry-wide. Ethically, that means a more transparent, efficient, higher quality process start to finish. Less reactive problem-solving, more proactive, data-driven ethical choices.
Sounds like it could drastically cut down on errors, conflicts, which are often sources of ethical disputes, cost blowouts, even safety problems.
Exactly. This is where BIM shines ethically. It enables robust clash detection, automatically finds where things intersect in the digital model.
Like pipes hitting beams.
Precisely. Ventilation ducts versus structural beams, electrical versus plumbing. Finds these conflicts before anything's built. Resolving them virtually optimizes the design, minimizes costly rework later, and crucially, mitigates potential safety issues from poorly coordinated designs. It's a powerful ethical tool, preventing waste, saving time, enhancing safety.
And for transparency, especially with clients, stakeholders, BIM must help ensure everyone's informed.
Incredible transparency, which is ethically vital for good communication. BIM's visualization lets owners, user groups, everyone see their project virtually, long before groundbreaking. Improves communication, builds shared understanding, leads to better decisions, fewer misunderstandings, ensures the final product matches expectations. Plus, 40 BIM links schedules to the 3D model animated construction sequences.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Aids coordination, supports what-if planning, risk assessment. Ultimately, it embodies an ethical responsibility to keep everyone informed, engaged, empowered, creates a single source of truth, reducing chances for misrepresentation.
It's clear these ethical challenges are ongoing. Technology helps. But it's also fascinating to look back, see how similar dilemmas existed centuries ago. What can ancient practices teach us about accountability, integrity in building or resource management?
We find amazing parallels. Shows human nature, ethical temptations haven't changed much. Look at George Agricola's De Re Metallica from 1556, a detailed text on ancient mining.
Mining in the 1500s.
Yeah. And even then, ethical issues were everywhere. Neighbors fighting over mines, superintendents demanding excessive contributions, foremen hiding rich veins, fraud and selling shares. The book even lists punishments, beatings for fraud, hanging for theft, and advises wise buyers to examine the vein themselves if they doubted someone. It shows these long-standing historical attempts to enforce ethics, prevent deception in resource extraction, direct parallels to the vigilance needed in modern construction. The ethical struggle against greed, dishonesty, it's timeless.
Truly seems like human nature hasn't changed, just the scale of our projects. Circling back to Robert Moses, what's the ultimate lesson from his story about accountability, potential ethical failures, even with modern systems and maybe good intentions?
His story is such a powerful, enduring reminder. Accountability can be compromised. Ethical failures can happen, even from figures initially praised for good intentions or efficiency. Moses was idolized by good government groups, right?
Yeah.
Yet his actions often separated communities from public goods, caused widespread displacement. He shows how ethical failures can occur within legal frameworks, how public oversight, if not rigorous and empowered, can be systematically undermined by unchecked authority, a dominant singular vision. It's a testament to the ongoing need for vigilance, transparency, a broad ethical view prioritizing collective well-being and individual rights over grand top-down plans. A lesson that progress without ethical consideration can have devastating human costs.
Wow. What a journey this has been. From the absolute basics of health and safety to grand urban planning visions, that intricate dance between art and client needs, it's undeniably clear. Architecture, building, it's so much more than just putting up structures. It's profoundly ethical.
It is, at its core, an act with profound ethical consequences, shaping lives, communities, our planet. We've seen how every single decision, material choice, parkway placement weaves together complex ethical threads. Whether it's the concrete demands of HSW, the nuanced duties of environmental stewardship, climate change, or navigating client relations, community impact, building is inherently, unavoidably moral.
This deep dive really drove home that professionalism isn't just technical skill, following codes, managing budgets. Those matter, sure. But the sources really show ethical practice is the true, lasting foundation of professionalism here. It's a field where tech moves incredibly fast, but human values, social systems, the long-term planetary impact. They demand careful, thoughtful, deeply ethical engagement.
And that leaves us with a really provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over. We've seen how ethical practice is the true foundation of professionalism in architecture. But if a building's physical foundation is the ground it sits on, what ethical responsibility do we truly have to the generations who will inherit and inhabit not just the structures we build, but the very ground beneath them, long after our contracts are done, our names forgotten?
That's a powerful question to end on.
It forces us to think far beyond the immediate project horizon, doesn't it? Into the deep future.
It really does. Thank you for joining us on the deep dive. We hope this journey into the ethics of architecture has given you a fresh perspective, maybe a heightened awareness of the spaces around you. Until next time, keep looking up and thinking deeply.